Hello my friends, it's Tara Nova, I'm your Ascension Guide. And in this video I want to share with you a short little story about my Kundalini awakening. It is the story about when Kundalini energy first started to move inside of my body. So I had a Kundalini awakening about slowly 4 years ago, and I had it through meditation, through my pineal gland. I never had the intention to awaken Kundalini. I never knew anything about Kundalini energy, Kundalini awakening, that something like this even exists. I started to meditate because I wanted to stop suffering. I had enough, and I reached a point where I just knew that nothing on the outside is going to make me happy and that I needed to find happiness inside of myself. So I turned to meditation and I turned to spiritual knowledge. And I also was totally new to meditation. And I started to meditate with different techniques that I found on the internet or in books. And I started with 5 minutes, then got up to 10 minutes. And slowly during meditation I started to find a specific meditation technique, a specific way to meditate that worked the best and felt the best. At that point, as I said, I didn't know anything about Kundalini awakening. And I did then only that meditation for about half a year for 30 minutes every day. I only skipped a few days because it really worked. I really felt so much better because of it. And then just one day, it just happened. It was an intense explosion of energy in the middle of my brain. It was like an orgasm in the middle of my brain. And then suddenly, after this explosion, my consciousness, my state of awareness, the way that I perceive the world and life completely changed from 1 minute to the other. So after this explosion happened, after I awakened Kundalini energy, my perception was totally changed. And it was like a quantum jump. It was like leveling up. And what I sensed immediately, and what I mean with leveling up, was that I was transformed from the one state of consciousness that almost everybody is in, and I was in all my life, to a totally different new state of consciousness. And what the wonderful thing was that I suddenly started to feel a blissful energy all the time. I call it my background bliss. So it is always a constant thing that I feel. I only understood later that it was because the awakening turned up the volume on my sensitivity, on my empathic abilities, and I'm able to sense the life force energy in all living things and in the environment and also in the air. So I just got more sensitive and was able to tap into this already existing positive, blissful nature of existence. And as I said, it is a constant state, but this state can also be higher, but it can never get lower. Even when I get out of alignment because of people hurting me, then I get into a little bit of lower states of consciousness, but I still can feel this background bliss behind the pain. So I always know that I can return, can tap again into this background bliss. This is also how I was able to, through trial and error, be able to get into an alignment state as quick as possible just by using one thought, one mantra. But this is a topic for another video. So being in alignment essentially means being conscious, being aware, being in the present moment, being in alignment with your being, with your soul or higher self. Being in alignment has many, many, many benefits. And for me, because I have awakened Kundalini energy, it is the ability to every time return into this high state, into this blissful state. That is essentially not a high state, but it is just your natural state of well-being that everybody can tap into. And this was also what I did in these 3 to 4 years after my Kundalini awakening, to try to make the gap between being conscious and being unconscious smaller and smaller and smaller. I was addicted to wanting to be in alignment all the time, because this was when I was my greatest version, most productive, most loving version of myself. Okay, but long story short, I want to talk about the first time Kundalini energy started to move inside of my body. So for most of the people, when you research Kundalini energy, Kundalini awakening, they have a Kundalini awakening from the bottom to the top, but there are also a lot of people that had it like me from the top to the bottom. And also Kundalini is depicted as a snake, a serpent, and that it is moving like a snake through the body, which is true. But for me, it wasn't immediately after my awakening. So I had my awakening, and then after that, like about a few weeks or maybe a month or so after the awakening, this was when first Kundalini started to move. I cannot remember anymore what triggered it, but I know that immediately after the awakening, Kundalini awakening started a cleansing process, a cleansing program inside of my being, and it taught me how to heal myself. And I did already after the awakening, some healing work, and maybe it was because of that. But when it first started, it was like this big pressure body, or this big energy pressure would start to move through my body and to the top and behind me, and it was so scary in the beginning. I thought it felt like, literally it felt like gravity would stop working, and I would lift up from the floor and would fly off. And I was so scared. I was like, no, I don't want to fly off. It was literally like that. Now when I'm thinking about it, it is a little bit like, it reminds me a little bit of astral projection, of when I first separated from my body. It is a little bit of a similar, it was a little bit of a similar sensation. So and then what started to happen, first as I said, it moved through the body like in a big way, and then it started to move through the nadis, through the energy channels of the body. And when I first recognized it, it was like it flowed through the nadis of my face, and then also in the middle of my brain. It would, where the pineal gland is, it would move down. And this is also when I noticed that I had blocked chakras, because when this energy started to move everywhere, it was like literally scanning my body, and it would bump into pressure areas, blockages, energy blockages, energetic blockages, where it couldn't flow through. For me, it was the lower chakras were blocked, where the energy couldn't flow fully through my body, and through the crown to the root chakra, like fully make this full circle around my body. It couldn't flow through fully, and then through trial and error, I created a healing technique to heal the chakras, and this was when the energy then could flow through these areas. Okay, that's it for this video. This was my short little story about when Kundalini energy first started to move inside of my body. It was a little bit strange and scary in the beginning, but I got used to it, and I no longer freak out. But it also isn't moving so actively anymore, like in the beginning when it moved through my body to scan my body, to help me to heal myself. So yeah, and thank you so much for watching, and see you soon. Goodbye.